Dear students, today we are going to discuss the poem Mending by Robert Frost. In the last class, I introduced the poem to you. The poem is written by Robert Frost. I have already explained the first 4 lines of the poem Mending by Robert Frost. In the first 4 lines, the poet says, there is something in nature that doesn't love a wall, and that something knocks over the boulders on the wall. So the poem is about a wall which separates the 2 neighbors, or the property of the 2 neighbors. The speaker in the poem says that nature doesn't love wall. Now we are going to discuss the next lines in the first part of the poem Mending Wall. I have already told you there are 27 lines in the first part of the poem. 4 lines have already been discussed, and now I am going to discuss the remaining 23 lines in the first part of the poem in this session. Just listen to this reading. I am going to read out the next 4 lines in the first part of the poem Mending Wall by Robert Frost. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair, where they would have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. So in these lines, the author speaks about another reason for the destruction of the wall. He says some of the boulders have been knocked over by the work of hunters. These hunters would come to chase the rabbits out of the gaps in the walls. The rabbits are hiding in these gaps of the wall. Now the hunters come, they try to chase these rabbits out of their hiding grounds to please their yelping dogs. To please their yelping dogs means yelping, the meaning of the word is the sharp, high-pitched cry of a dog. To please the yelping dogs, the hunters would come and chase these rabbits out of their hiding grounds, here the gaps in the wall. And in the meantime, some of these boulders are knocked down by the hunters. Some of the stones are toppled off by the hunters. So the work of hunters is another reason for the destruction of this wall. Then there is one expression in that stanza, in that part of the poem. The expression is that they would have left no stone on another. This is an example of allusion. It refers to the Holy Bible, refers to the Holy Gospel of St. Matthew chapter 24, refers to the words of Jesus Christ. Do you see all these things? He asked. Truly I tell you, not one stone will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down. So these are the lines uttered by, the words uttered by Jesus Christ. So here you find that that particular line alludes to the words of Jesus Christ. We move on to the next lines in that part. The gaps I mean, no one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time, we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. Here the poet says the gaps are made, but no one has seen them made or heard them made. So here the speaker says that probably it is the work of some supernatural beings, supernatural forces, because here the speaker says no one has seen them made, no one has heard them made. So he has created an eerie feeling here, a frightening feeling here, a fearful feeling here. But during the spring season, they find these gaps. During the spring season, they find that the wall is destroyed. In every spring season, they find the gaps in the wall. In every spring season, the speaker informs his neighbor who is living beyond the hill. And they fix a day, and finally they come together to repair the wall. So they walk along the wall. They walk along the wall on either sides, and they find that some of these stones have been knocked over. They pick up those boulders on either sides and they fix them on the wall. They try to repair the wall. Now we move on to the next few lines in that part of the poem, Mending Wall by Robert Frost. We keep the wall between us as we go, to each the boulders that have fallen to each. And some are lows and some so nearly bowls. We have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Now the two neighbors, they walk along the wall. They walk along on either sides of the wall. They pick up stones from there and try to fix them again on the wall. Here the speaker says, some are loaves and some are bowls. The figure of speech used here is metaphor. Some are loaves and some are bowls. That means some of the stones are compared to loaves of bread and some other stones are compared to bowls. As these stones do not have a regular shape, it is almost impossible for these neighbors to fix them again on the wall. And that is the reason here the speaker says, we have to cast a spell. We have to cast a magic spell to fix these stones there. The magic words that they utter, stay where you are until our backs are turned. Metaphor is used, some are loaves, some are bowls. Another figure of speech is used, stay where you are until our backs are turned. They cast a magic spell, they utter that magic spell to those stones. So here stones are personified. They cast that magic spell, stay where you are until our backs are turned. They are very certain that the stones will not remain on the wall too long. That means the stones will fall very soon. They are very certain about this. They are very sure about this. They yell at the stones. They have to confirm that the stones will remain in the wall, at least in their presence. Both of the neighbors know that this is a futile exercise. This is an exercise which is of no use. So the neighbors know that mending wall, repairing that wall is a futile exercise. And another line in that part, they have made their fingers rough, hands rough with the handling of these stones for a long time. They have scraped their fingers, they have scraped their hands by the handling of these stones for a long time. I move on to the next few lines in the first part of the poem, Mending Wall by Robert Frost. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side. It comes to little more. There where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the corns under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. The speaker considers mending wall as an outdoor game. For him, it is a game. It is not just repairing the wall. The neighbors are in the respective fields, like two sports persons in the respective courts. And this is the reason why the speaker considers it as an outdoor game, like tug of war, like any outdoor game where the players of different teams are in the respective courts. Here both the neighbors, they stand in the respective fields, they pick up the boulders and they try to fix them on the wall, and the speaker considers it as an outdoor game. And for the first time in the poem, the speaker categorically says that he does not believe in the idea of a wall. He does not like a wall, and he tries to rationalize his argument. He says, the neighbor has pine trees in his orchard. In his field, in his property, he has only pine trees. And the speaker has apple trees in his orchard. And the speaker here justifies his argument by saying that his apple trees will not get across the border and eat the corns under the pine trees of his neighbor. The meaning of the word corn, here it means the dried fruits of pine trees. So here the author says, the speaker says, his apple trees will not get across the border and eat the corns under the pine trees. So the speaker says to his neighbor, they do not need a wall in between their property. They do not need a wall between their orchards, between their fields. But here, the neighbor does not want to argue with the speaker. He just says, good fences make good neighbors. He does not want to change his conviction. He does not want to change his belief. He believes in walls. He says, good fences make good neighbors. He believes in that age-old saying, good fences make good neighbors. He does not want to go beyond that particular wise saying of his forefathers. So this is the essence of the first part of the poem Mending Wall by Robert Frost. The first part speaks about two neighbors who have different views about a wall in between their properties, in between their fields. And those two arguments are highlighted, discussed in the first part of the poem Mending Wall by Robert Frost. That's all for the day. Thank you.